Richard Sommerfeld opened an envelope from his German bank to find a foreclosure notice on assets he no longer owned, for debts he could never repay. 270,000 euros borrowed, transferred, and lost to a 29-year-old woman who'd called him her soulmate and promised him forever. He sat in a cramped studio in Pattaya, staring at letters demanding payment for loans he'd taken out to save a woman who'd never been in danger. The woman he'd met on a dating app, who spoke fluent German, who seemed educated and independent, who'd systematically destroyed him over 14 months while he believed every word she said. Richard was 66 years old, 12,000 kilometers from Stuttgart, with negative net worth and no way back. The woman who'd called him mine honey and cried about loan sharks threatening her family had vanished, leaving him drowning in debt he'd accumulated trying to rescue her from problems that never existed. But 14 months earlier, sitting in his empty apartment in Stuttgart 2 years after his divorce, Richard had no idea what was coming. 14 months earlier, he thought Thailand would save him from the loneliness, crushing him after 40 years of marriage ended in bitter failure. He thought he was being careful, dating properly, choosing wisely. Instead, he walked straight into the most sophisticated con of his life, one that didn't just take what he had, but borrowed his future and destroyed that too. If you've been enjoying the stories I create, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Your support is crucial for the growth of this channel and helps me dedicate time to making these videos despite my commitment to a full-time job. Thank you for being here. Richard Sommerfeld, everyone called him Rick, turned 66 on a gray February morning in 2024, alone in his apartment in Stuttgart-Feuerbach. His divorce from Brigitte had been finalized 8 months earlier, ending 40 years of marriage with the stroke of a judge's pen. Rick had worked as a logistics manager for a major automotive supplier for 38 years. Started as a warehouse clerk at 28, worked his way up through discipline and precision typical German work ethic. By the time he took early retirement at 65, he was managing supply chains for factories across Europe. The job paid well, 85,000 euros annually at the end. But it consumed him. 16-hour days, constant stress, international calls at midnight. Brigitte had complained for years that he was married to his job, not to her. He'd always promised to change, to slow down, to prioritize family. He never did. And eventually, she stopped asking. They'd raised 2 children, Stefan, now 43 and living in Berlin, and Claudia, 40, living in Munich. Both were successful, busy, distant. They called on birthdays and Christmas, sent polite texts, visited rarely. When Brigitte told him she wanted a divorce, Rick felt more relief than sadness. Their marriage had been dead for years. They lived in the same house but barely spoke, ate meals in silence, slept in separate rooms. The divorce just made official what had been true for a decade. The settlement split everything. The house sold for 450,000 euros. After paying off the mortgage and legal fees, they each got 190,000. Rick also had his pension. He'd taken it early at 65, receiving 85% of full benefits, about 3,500 euros monthly. Total assets, 350,000 euros in savings and investments, plus his monthly pension. Comfortable, secure, enough to live well for the rest of his life if he was sensible, or enough to lose everything and go deep into debt if he wasn't. Stuttgart in winter was depressing, cold, gray, industrial. Rick's apartment was in a modern building in Feuerbach, technically nice but soulless. White walls, IKEA furniture, no personality. It felt like a hotel room, not a home. The loneliness was crushing. Not the sad loneliness of fresh divorce, but something darker, the realization that he'd spent 40 years building a life that meant nothing. His kids barely knew him. His ex-wife was already dating someone else. His colleagues had moved on. He tried dating, created profiles on Parship and Elite Partner, messaged women his age, went on a few dates. One woman talked about her ex-husband the entire time. Another clearly wanted financial security more than companionship. A third was nice, but boring. He felt nothing. German women his age seemed exhausted, carrying baggage from failed marriages, grown children, decades of disappointment. Rick didn't want to be someone's second attempt at fixing what went wrong the first time. One evening in March, unable to sleep, Rick started watching YouTube videos about retiring abroad. The algorithm showed him content about Thailand Germans living in Phuket and Pattaya, talking about the weather, the affordable lifestyle, the friendly culture. but also about the women, older German men with younger Thai partners, couples who seemed genuinely happy, laughing, enjoying life in ways that felt impossible in Stuttgart. Rick told himself that wasn't the appeal. He was interested in the culture, the adventure, the possibility of starting fresh somewhere warm and welcoming. But late at night, alone in his sterile apartment, he thought about it, about companionship, about feeling wanted again, about mattering to someone. Thailand started feeling less like a destination and more like an answer. In April, Rick made his decision. He'd take early retirement proceeds, sell his remaining possessions, and move to Thailand. Not permanently at first, maybe 6 months to see if he liked it, but enough to escape Stuttgart. The cold, the loneliness, the reminder of 40 wasted years. His kids weren't happy. Stefan called, sounding annoyed. "Papa, this seems impulsive. Have you even been to Thailand?" "I've done research. Many Germans retire there successfully. But you don't know anyone. What if you hate it? Then I come back. But I can't stay here, Stefan. This apartment, this city, everything reminds me that I have nothing." "You have us." "Do I? You're in Berlin. Claudia's in Munich. I see you twice a year. Let's not pretend I have some close family keeping me here." Silence. Then, "Just be careful. I've heard stories about foreigners getting scammed in Thailand. I'm not an idiot. I managed supply chains for 38 years. I know how to assess risk." Famous last words. Rick sold his car, his furniture, everything except what fit in 2 suitcases. He gave some possessions to his kids, family photos, his father's watch, things he wanted them to have. On May 10th, 2024, Rick locked his empty apartment, took a taxi to Stuttgart Airport, and boarded a flight to Bangkok with a connection to Phuket. 2 suitcases, open return ticket, 350,000 euros in various accounts, his entire life reduced to luggage and numbers on screens. As the plane lifted off, Stuttgart disappeared beneath clouds. Rick ordered a beer and tried to feel excited instead of terrified about what he was leaving behind and what he was flying toward. Phuket's heat was staggering, 36 degrees at midday with humidity that made breathing feel like work. After Stuttgart's spring chill, the heat felt almost aggressive, but also liberating, like the weather itself announced this was somewhere completely different. Rick had booked a serviced apartment in Patong for the first month, 18,000 baht monthly, about 450 euros. Nice building, pool, gym, walking distance to the beach. The apartment was clean and modern, if a bit small, but it was his, and that was enough. Phuket was different than he'd expected. More developed, more touristy, more expensive than the YouTube videos suggested. Patong Beach was packed with tourists, vendors, and bars. The quieter areas were nicer, Kata, Karen, Rawai, but also more isolated. Everything was still cheap by German standards. A full meal at a local restaurant cost 80 to 100 baht, under 3 euros. Beer was 40 baht. Massages were 200 baht for an hour, 5 euros. Rick did constant mental calculations. If he rented a nice apartment for 15,000 baht monthly, 375 euros, and spent another 20,000 on food and activities, he could live comfortably on 35,000 baht. That was 875 euros monthly. His pension was 3,500, so he'd save over 2,500 monthly while living better than in Stuttgart. 350,000 euros could last him decades. He'd never need to touch his principal. But loneliness followed him from Germany. He'd watch couples, older Western men with younger Thai women. Yes, but also families, tourists, Thai couples, and feel that familiar ache. He'd eat dinner alone, walk the beach alone, return to his empty apartment alone. After 2 weeks, Rick created a profile on Thai Cupid, one of the larger dating apps. He was honest, recent photo showing a 66-year-old man with gray hair and a modest build. No lies about age or situation. Bio saying he was recently retired, new to Phuket, looking for genuine connection. He got many messages. Most were clearly working profiles with glamour shots. Bios mentioning being flexible or open-minded. He ignored those. Then he got a message from someone different. Her name was Thaemanwan, though she went by Lena, 29 according to her profile. Photos showed an attractive woman in professional clothes, business casual, minimal makeup, genuine smiles. Her bio said she was a freelance translator and social media consultant for tourism companies, educated, looking for someone mature and stable. Her message was thoughtful. "Hello, Richard. I saw your profile and appreciated how honest you seem. I'm not interested in games or sugar daddy arrangements. I have my own career and income, but I'd like to meet someone genuine who wants real companionship. If that sounds interesting, I'd be happy to chat." It felt different, more mature, less transactional. Rick replied, "Hello, Lena. Thank you for reaching out. Your message stands out from the others. I'd definitely be interested in getting to know you. Perhaps we could meet for coffee sometime?" They messaged for 5 days before meeting. She asked intelligent questions about his life, why Thailand, what he did before retirement, what he was looking for. Rick asked about hers. She said she'd studied English and German at university in Bangkok, worked in tourism marketing, did freelance translation work. "I'm not a bar girl," she wrote. "I know that's what many foreign men come here looking for, but that's not me. I have education, career, goals. I want a real relationship with someone who respects that." That reassured Rick. This wasn't someone looking for handouts. This was an educated professional who wanted genuine connection. They agreed to meet at a cafe in Patong. Rick arrived early, nervous. When Lena walked in, she looked exactly like her photos professional, put together, confident. She wore a nice dress, carried a leather bag, spoke German with a slight accent. "Rick," she smiled warmly, "so nice to finally meet you. You too. Your German is excellent. I studied it at university. Love the language, the precision, very different from Thai." They talked for 4 hours. She was articulate, funny, asked good questions. She told him about her family, middle class. Her father owned a small business in Bangkok. Her mother was a retired teacher. They'd supported her education, expected her to be independent. "Many Western men come here with stereotypes," she said. "They think all Thai women are bar girls or gold diggers. But Thailand has doctors, lawyers, businesswomen. I'm just someone who happens to be single and open to meeting someone from abroad." Rick told her about his divorce, his kids, his decision to come to Thailand. She listened attentively, asked thoughtful questions, seemed genuinely interested. "You seem like a good person," she said as they left. "I'd like to see you again if you're interested." "I'm very interested." They started dating properly. She had her own life work she did from home, clients she met, friends she saw for dinner. She wasn't clingy or demanding. She paid for herself most times, insisting she had her own money. "I want this to be about us," she'd say, "not about your wallet." That made Rick trust her more. This wasn't someone looking for a sugar daddy. This was someone who wanted an equal partnership. They took things slow, dated for 3 weeks before becoming intimate. When they finally did, it felt natural adults choosing to be together, not a transaction. After 6 weeks, Lena started staying at his apartment occasionally. Not moving in, just spending a few nights a week. She'd bring her laptop, work from his place, cook dinner sometimes. It felt domestic in a way Rick hadn't experienced in years. Everything seemed perfect. Too perfect, perhaps. But Rick ignored the small voice, warning him that if something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. 2 months into their relationship, Lena mentioned her mother was sick. They were having dinner at a nice restaurant in Kata Beach. Lena had been quiet all evening, distracted. Rick finally asked what was wrong. "It's my mother," she said quietly. "She's been having health problems. The doctors think it might be serious." "What kind of problems?" "Heart issues. She needs tests, but they're expensive. The public hospital has a 6-month waiting list, and private hospitals want payment up front." "How much?" 60,000 baht for the full cardiac workup, about 1,500 euros. She shook her head. "It's too much. We'll figure something out." 1,500 euros, nothing for Rick, potentially life-saving for her mother. "Let me help," Rick said. "No, I can't. Lena, it's 1,500 euros. I have savings. If your mother needs medical care, of course I'll help." Tears formed in her eyes. "Are you sure? I don't want you to think I'm with you for money." "I don't think that. You've been paying your own way this whole time. This is different. This is family emergency. Of course I'll help." He transferred 60,000 baht the next day. Lena cried with gratitude, saying he was saving her mother's life, that she'd never forget this. 2 weeks later, the tests revealed her mother needed surgery. Another 80,000 baht, 2,000 euros. Again, Rick transferred it without hesitation. "You're an angel," Lena said. "I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. We're together. Your family is my family." That should have been the end. But problems kept emerging. Her father's business was struggling. Could Rick loan 30,000 baht just temporarily? Of course he could. Her apartment rent was overdue because a client hadn't paid her 20,000 baht, naturally. She needed a new laptop for work, her old one died. 40,000 baht, obviously. Each request was plausible. Each came with evidence, medical bills, rent notices, broken laptop. Each time, Lena was hesitant, apologetic, promising to pay him back. And each time, Rick gave without hesitation because he loved her, and this was what partners did. By month 4, Rick had transferred about 200,000 baht, 5,000 euros. Not a huge amount, but more than he'd planned. His savings had dropped from 350,000 to 345,000 euros. Still very comfortable, still nothing to worry about, just helping his girlfriend through some temporary difficulties. Then came the loan shark. In month 5, Lena arrived at Rick's apartment in tears. Real, heaving sobs. She was terrified, shaking, barely able to speak. What happened? Rick asked, alarmed. I did something stupid. Before I met you, I borrowed money. From who? A loan shark. I needed money for my father's business. The bank wouldn't give me a loan, so I went to someone else. How much? 200,000 baht. But with interest, it's grown to 400,000 now. About 10,000 euros. And they're threatening me. Threatening my family. She showed him text messages in Thai. Rick couldn't read them, but her translations were terrifying. Threats of violence, photos of her parents' house, warnings that they'd come for her. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I was ashamed. I thought I could handle it. I've been trying to pay them, but the interest keeps growing. Now they want everything at once or they'll hurt my family. Rick felt protective rage rise. Someone was threatening the woman he loved? Threatening her family? How much do you need to pay them off? The full amount. 400,000 baht, 10,000 euros. But I don't have it. I don't know what to do. 10,000 euros. A significant amount, but Rick had it. And if it kept Lena and her family safe, I'll pay it, he said. No, I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. I won't let these people hurt you, she cried against his chest. I don't deserve you. You're too good to me. He transferred 400,000 baht the next day. Lena said she'd paid the loan shark, shown them the money, and they'd agreed to leave her alone. Rick felt good about it. He'd saved her from a dangerous situation. He was her protector, her hero. His savings, 335,000 euros. Still comfortable, still secure, just a temporary dip to help someone he loved. But 2 weeks later, Lena came back in tears. The loan sharks weren't satisfied. They wanted another 200,000 administrative fees for closing the account early. That's bullshit, Rick said. They're extorting you. I know, but they have photos of my parents. They know where they live. If I don't pay, they'll hurt them. Rick paid another 200,000 baht, 5,000 euros. Savings, 330,000 euros. Then another payment. Then another. Each time, there was a new excuse, interest recalculated, additional fees, threats that required immediate payment. By month 8, Rick had transferred 750,000 baht, nearly 20,000 euros, to deal with loan sharks. Savings, 330,000 euros. He started to question the pattern. Every time he paid off a debt, new debts appeared. Every time he solved a problem, new problems emerged. Lena, this doesn't make sense. How much did you originally borrow? I told you 200,000, and we've paid 950,000. Where's all this money going? To interest. These people are criminals. They charge insane rates. Then let's go to the police. No. Her face went pale. If we go to the police, they'll kill my family. These people are connected. The police can't help. Rick felt trapped. If he stopped paying, her family would be hurt. If he kept paying, his savings would disappear. But what choice did he have? His daughter Claudia called in month 9. She'd been texting regularly, and Rick had been vague about his finances. Papa, how are you really? You sound stressed. I'm fine. Just adjusting to life here. How's your girlfriend? Lena? She's good. We're good. And financially, you're being careful? Rick hesitated. Of course. Papa, how much have you given her? I haven't given her anything. I've helped with some family emergencies. How much? He didn't want to answer. Maybe 30,000 euros total. Silence. Then, Papa, that's almost 10% of your savings. It's for genuine emergencies. Her mother's medical bills. Loan sharks threatening her family. Loan sharks? Papa, that's the oldest scam in Thailand. There are no loan sharks. There's no sick mother. It's all fake. You don't know that. You haven't met her. I don't need to meet her. I've read about this. It's textbook. They create fake emergencies that require immediate payment. You keep paying, thinking you're almost done, but new problems keep appearing. Lena's not scamming me. She's educated, has her own career. Papa, please listen to me. Stop sending money. Come home before you lose everything. I'm not coming home. This is my home now. He hung up, angry that his daughter didn't understand, but doubt had planted itself in his mind. Was Claudia right? He pushed the thoughts away. Lena loved him. They were building a life together. These were just temporary difficulties. By month 11, Rick's savings had dropped to 280,000 euros. He'd transferred 70,000 fighting loan sharks that seemed infinite. Then Lena came with a new crisis. Her father's business was collapsing. Without immediate capital injection, he'd lose everything: the shop, their family home used as collateral, their entire livelihood. He needs 2 million baht, Lena said, crying. About 50,000 euros to pay suppliers and keep the business running. If he doesn't pay, he loses everything. 50,000 euros. Rick didn't have that liquid anymore without significantly depleting his savings. I don't have that much available right now. But you have property in Germany, right? Your apartment? I sold it before coming here. But you have pension? Credit rating? You could borrow against future income. Rick hesitated. Taking out loans at 66 seemed insane. But Lena's family was about to lose everything. And if he helped them through this crisis, surely things would stabilize. My bank in Germany might offer me a line of credit, he said slowly. Could you try? Please? I'm begging you. This is my family's entire life. Rick contacted his German bank, explained he needed a personal loan. They checked his credit excellent after decades of responsible borrowing and his pension steady income for life. They approved a line of credit, 60,000 euros at 6% interest. Rick borrowed 50,000 and transferred it to the account Lena provided her father's business account, she said. His savings, 230,000 euros. His debt, 50,000 euros. Net worth, 180,000 euros. Still positive, still manageable, just temporary until her father's business recovered. But the business didn't recover. 2 months later, it needed more capital, another 30,000 euros. Rick's credit line couldn't extend further, so he applied for another loan, this time from a different lender. They approved 35,000 euros against his pension payments. He borrowed 30,000 and transferred it. Savings, 230,000 euros. Debt, 80,000 euros. Net worth, 150,000 euros. By month 14, over a year after meeting Lena, Rick had transferred or borrowed nearly 130,000 euros. His once comfortable retirement was becoming precarious. And then came the final request. Lena's mother needed emergency surgery. The hospital wanted payment up front, 140,000 euros. I don't have that, Rick said, finally hitting a wall. I can't borrow that much. But she'll die without the surgery. Then we use the healthcare system, public hospitals. There's no time. She needs surgery now. Lena, I've given everything I can. I've gone into debt for your family. I can't borrow more. She looked at him with something he'd never seen before, cold calculation. So you're saying my mother should die because you won't help? That's not what I'm saying. That's exactly what you're saying. You have credit. You have assets. You just don't want to use them for me. I've used everything. I've borrowed against my future. Clearly not everything. That night, Lena didn't come home. Or the next night. Or the night after that. Rick tried calling, phone disconnected. Texting messages didn't deliver. Facebook profile deleted. After 3 days of silence, Rick went to the address Lena had given as her apartment. It didn't exist. The building number didn't match any structure on that street. He went to the coffee shop where she said she worked freelance. They'd never heard of her. He contacted the translation agency she claimed to work with. No employee by that name. Everything was fake. The career, the family business, the sick mother, the loan sharks, all fabricated. Rick sat in his apartment and finally opened his banking apps to see the full damage. German savings, 110,000 euros. German debts, 80,000 euros. Thai account, essentially zero. Total transferred to Lena over 14 months, 140,000 euros. Net worth, 30,000 euros. He'd started with 350,000. Now he had 30,000 and monthly loan payments of nearly 1,000 euros, eating most of his pension. He hadn't just lost his savings. He'd borrowed his own destruction. Rick reported everything to the Thai police. They came, took notes, looked at his bank transfers, asked questions. "You sent this money voluntarily?" one officer asked. "Yes, but under false pretenses. She lied about everything." "But you chose to send it? She didn't force you? She manipulated me." "Difficult case. You gave money to girlfriend. She leave." Thai law very complicated for this situation. They took his statement. He never heard from them again. Rick's German bank started sending notices. His loan payments were due. 80,000 euros borrowed at 6 and 7% interest meant monthly payments of around 900 euros. His pension was 3,500 euros monthly. After loan payments, taxes, and basic living expenses, Rick had maybe 1,200 euros monthly to live on. In Thailand, that was possible. In Germany, it wouldn't be. His kids found out. Claudia called, her voice a mixture of anger and sadness. "Papa, we heard. The bank contacted Stefan because you listed him as emergency contact. I'm handling it. You're not handling it. You're 80,000 euros in debt with 30,000 in savings. You're 66 years old. How will you ever recover from this?" "I'll manage. Come home, please. You can stay with me until we figure something out." But Rick couldn't face it. Couldn't face returning to Germany broken and indebted. Couldn't face his children's pity and his ex-wife's vindication. Couldn't stomach being the foolish old man everyone had warned about. "I'm staying here." "Papa, I said I'm staying." He hung up. Rick moved out of his nice apartment. 15,000 baht monthly was no longer affordable. He found a tiny studio in Pattaya for 6,000 baht, 150 euros. One room, shared bathroom, no air conditioning. The neighborhood was rough, but the price was right. He sold everything valuable he still owned. His watch, his laptop, his camera, raised a few thousand euros and sent it to the bank to show good faith. But he was trapped, living month to month in Thailand because he couldn't afford to leave, couldn't afford to stay anywhere decent, couldn't afford to do anything except survive. Rick has been in the Pattaya studio for 6 months now. He's 67 years old. He looks older, gaunt from eating poorly, gray from stress, exhausted from the weight of debt he can never repay. His pension comes monthly, 3,500 euros. 900 goes to loan payments, 400 to his studio rent. The remaining 2,200 covers food, utilities, phone, medicine, everything else. He lives on about 70 euros daily. In Thailand, it's possible. Rice, eggs, cheap vegetables, street food when he can afford it. No alcohol, no luxuries, no life beyond basic survival. The German bank sends letters monthly. The debt isn't shrinking at 6 and 7% interest. He's barely covering interest with his payments. The principal remains. He'll die with this debt. It'll pass to his estate, which means his kids will inherit nothing except his mistakes. Rick spends his days at an Expat community center, a donation-funded place where scammed foreigners gather for support. Everyone has a version of his story. Everyone fell for a version of Lena. "Mine was called Apple," one British man says. "Took 80,000 pounds. Fake sick mother, fake business investment. Mine was Fa," a German says. "Loan sharks, father's hospital bills, the whole package. 150,000 euros. They trade stories like war veterans comparing scars. Each story is different in details but identical in structure. Lonely man, professional scammer, fabricated emergencies, empty accounts. Rick has become a cautionary tale. When new expats arrive, optimistic about their Thai girlfriends, the regulars point to Rick. That's Rick. Had 350,000 euros and excellent credit. Now he's deep in debt, living in a studio, surviving on scraps. Listen to him before you make his mistakes. And Rick tells them about Lena, who spoke German, about the fake career and educated persona, about loan sharks that didn't exist, and medical emergencies that were lies, about how he not only gave everything he had, but borrowed against his future to give her more. Some listen, most don't. "My situation is different," they say. "She's not like that," they say. "I'm not stupid like those other guys," they say. And Rick nods, because he said the exact same things. Rick sits in his studio most evenings, alone with his choices. The room is 8 feet by 10 feet, a mattress on the floor, a fan that barely works, a window overlooking an alley. This is what remains of 40 years of work, of 38 years climbing corporate ladders, of living disciplined, saving responsibly, planning carefully, all destroyed in 14 months by believing someone who seemed too good to be true. Because that's what Lena was, too good to be true. An educated, professional Thai woman who spoke German, had her own career, wanted love, not money, who seemed different from every stereotype, every warning, every red flag. She was different. She was more sophisticated, more calculated, more professional at the con. The loan shark scheme was brilliant, Rick can admit now. It created urgency, pay now or violence follows. It justified endless payments interest that never stops growing. It prevented police involvement. These people are too dangerous. And it drained not just savings but future income through debt. Rick didn't just lose what he had. He lost his future earning potential. His pension will pay his debts until he dies, leaving nothing for himself except bare survival. His children have stopped calling as frequently. They've accepted he's lost, that he won't come home, that this is his life now. They send occasional money, 500 euros here and there, which keeps him from complete destitution but can't fix what's broken. His ex-wife, Brigitte, somehow heard about what happened. She sent one email. "I'm sorry this happened to you, but you always did choose work over family, money over sense. I hope you find peace." It was cruel but accurate. Rick had spent 40 years prioritizing wrong things, and his last chance to get it right, he'd blown spectacularly by trusting a professional scammer. The irony isn't lost on him. He'd been a logistics manager. His entire career was about assessing risk, optimizing systems, preventing problems. He'd been good at it. Excellent, even, but faced with loneliness and a beautiful woman who made him feel important, all his professional judgment evaporated. He became the easiest mark imaginable, a disciplined man desperate to believe that love could fix what 40 years of choices had broken. Richard Sommerfeld is 67 years old. He lives in a one-room studio in Pattaya, surviving on what's left of his pension after debt payments. He came to Thailand with 350,000 euros, hoping for a peaceful retirement. He leaves this life deep in debt with no way out. The woman who destroyed him, Thamanwan, Lena Boonsong, if that was even her real name, was never found. The police confirmed there was no business registration under that name, no translation agency employment, no family business in Bangkok, no sick mother needing surgery. Everything was fiction. Every emergency was manufactured. Every tear was performance. And Rick believed all of it, because she presented exactly what he needed to believe, that an educated, independent Thai woman could genuinely want a 66-year-old divorced German man. She didn't just take his savings. She convinced him to take loans, to borrow against his future, to go into debt that will follow him to his grave. That's the evolution of the scam. Why take just what someone has when you can take what they can borrow? Rick spends his days warning others now. At the Expat Center, new arrivals come with stars in their eyes, stories about women they've met, love they've found. Rick sits them down and shows them his bank statements, the before and after, the savings evaporated, the debt accumulated. She spoke German, he tells them. She was educated. She had a career. She paid her own way. She seemed nothing like the stereotypes. That's exactly why it worked. Some listen, many don't. My girlfriend is different, they say, and Rick sees himself reflected in their defiant certainty. The debt will never be paid. At current rates, Rick covers interest but barely touches principal. When he dies, probably in this studio room, probably alone, his estate will be negative. His kids will inherit nothing except the lesson that their father's last act was to destroy everything he'd built over 40 years. The Thai authorities did nothing. German authorities could do nothing. He'd borrowed and transferred money voluntarily. No crime was committed except the crime of being lonely and trusting someone who knew exactly how to exploit it. Rick's story is different from typical bar girl scams. Lena never worked in bars. She met him on a dating app. She presented as educated and independent. She built trust slowly, carefully, professionally. And when she finally started extracting money, she didn't just ask for it. She created elaborate emergencies that justified going into debt. That's the sophisticated scam. Not give me money because you love me, but borrow money because I'm in danger and only you can save me. And Rick, disciplined and careful his entire life, borrowed himself into inescapable debt, trying to save someone who was never in danger from problems that never existed. His warning to others is simple. If it seems too good to be true, an educated, independent, beautiful young woman wanting a genuine relationship with an older foreigner, it is too good to be true. That presentation is the scam, not despite seeming legitimate, but because it seems legitimate. The con has evolved. It's no longer about bar girls asking for money. It's about professional scammers who present as everything except what you'd expect, who build trust over months, who extract not just savings but future income through manufactured emergencies that justify borrowing. Rick didn't just lose his money. He borrowed his own destruction, one emergency at a time, believing he was saving someone he loved. Now he lives with debt he'll never repay, in a room barely bigger than a prison cell, surviving on scraps, warning others who rarely listen. That's Richard Sommerfeld's story. A warning written in debt, notices, and empty bank accounts. A reminder that the most dangerous scams are the ones that don't look like scams, that look exactly like what you're hoping to find. He came to Thailand seeking peace and warmth. He found systematic exploitation that didn't just take what he had, but borrowed his future and destroyed that too. His reflection, sitting in his studio as the sun sets over Pattaya. I didn't just lose my money, I borrowed my own destruction, and I'll pay for it until the day I die. That's the price of believing too much, too fast, in someone who knew exactly what to say.